And just want to say thanks for tuning in to the Oregon Mighty Ducks expansion draft here. Got myself, Brendan, and I got Matt from Colorado and John from the owner of Seattle with me. What's up, guys?
Sir.
Going on. Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy day off for hopefully
You-
most of us.
Hopefully, right? Yeah.
Did get up at 5 o'clock to go in for a couple hours, but that's all right. But we'll get started here. The first thing we have to do is we got a trade announcement here. We got I'll be sending the 5th overall this season and my first round pick next season to Boston for their first round this year, their third rounder this year, and the right to select Jake Gensel in the expansion draft.
Yeah, that's awesome. That changes my list for Boston.
Yeah, I bet.
Right.
So I'll just
I mean,
go up here and announce that pick. I was not thinking that Kaprizov would make it down to the 5th overall. So to get someone pretty good and uh, to get their production that's not going to tail off, especially playing with Crosby or Malkin. He's just going to have a card that's in the 90s every year, and he's locked up until 2026. So I think it's a pretty good deal. And I got that first rounder coming back as well, so didn't lose a um, didn't lose the entire first round this year.
Yeah. Overall, I think that's a solid trade. Great pickup for you. Like you said, production will be over 90 the majority of the years, unless something happens injury wise. But this year, stamina 7, fortitude was 7, playing with Crosby or Malkin, power play minutes. That's a solid pickup. I like that.
I'd have to agree. And just moving back in the draft, not really losing a whole lot there. I mean, the fifth is kind of a hard pill to swallow, but you also need a bunch of forwards. And there was a lot of defensemen in the draft, the expansion draft. I mean, you could have gone with somebody like Dadonov here, but 4.5 million, and not a good offensive card this year. So I mean, this is a great pickup from me.
Yeah, I was thinking Dadanoff, and between the 4.5 million to Gensel's, I think 5.7, it was pretty much no brainer there. So we'll move on to the next pick from my former team, Johnstown. You guys have any or where would you go with if you guys were me?
You look at my list here. I think I had this is it's the same list I was working with from the original podcast. I think I had kind of a toss up between Dredden Hunt and Keith Kincaid. So if you wanted to go goalie right off the bat, um, Kincaid is a good option for this year. He's cheap. He's on one of those minimum deals for 400K, and on the other hand, Hunt is RFA next year, coming off of a bridge deal. Um, okay numbers, but you get that backup numbers goalie for in Kincaid. That's probably where I would go. But I haven't looked at. I want to put this out there. Is I haven't looked at like the entire draft as a whole to what was like where you might find a goalie or what might shoehorn you into another being forced into a different position. So I haven't really looked, but I think without looking, I'd go Kincaid probably. I'm kind of feeling Kincaid.
Yes, you would be correct. Did go Kincaid here, especially with that a low contract, like you said, and then I mean could offer him a couple year deal if I wanted to bump it up a little bit. But just for this year, I will say most of my picks are for to go for the playoffs, go for the cup, the first 2 years, and then we'll see where that goes. Starting from scratch, I either had the option to pick prospects, and I wouldn't say they were great prospects, but it was either that or just try and produce the best team on paper and see what happens.
Yeah, that's kind of the mentality I would have had if I was doing something like this, is going BPA, going just best player available, and just trying to get to maximize my talent right off the bat. Um, but then always have to worry about like cap hit and contract length, because there's a lot of guys that $7 million contracts, UFAs next year, so you only have them for a year or two depending on what you do. But I like Kincaid, solid backup for this year. Stamina 4, but it's assuming you pick up another goalie who has a little bit higher stamina, you can just alternate between the two.
Yep. Anything to add, John?
Yeah, I was just gonna say somebody like Delzato could have gone here. Um, it's a possibility, but I mean he doesn't have a good defensive card, but he's a younger guy from what I remember. But otherwise, this was one of those picks that I thought you could go any position. So I mean, getting a goalie here is great. Getting a forward here would have been okay too. But I think Kincaid has the better card, the best card for what you were able to pick out of Johnstown.
Definitely. With the Delzato, there's uh there's uh, a lot of defensemen available to be picked that had much better cards from a bunch of different teams. So it's one reason why I went goalie here and contract as well.
Definitely makes sense.
So we'll move on. We got Michigan, formerly Detroit. I'll show you guys the pick and then we can discuss. It's going to be Mike Riley coming off a bridge deal. So I think it was a 2.2. So I can sign him for 4 years. Just a solid puck moving defenseman. Can slot in with a solid stay at home guy. You guys
This
got
is
a
definitely this is definitely a better pickup than I was thinking, 'cause for me, this guy is got a pretty good defensive card. You can use him now. And when I was looking at Michigan, I picked up a 100K guy just because I don't know if you can or not. I don't remember the exact rules, but I was just thinking cap hit here because there really wasn't a lot else to pick from. But I think this is a great pick. What do you think, Matt?
I like it. I really liked those 60, 70 defensemen with 6, 7 stamina. Those guys are great, and they tend to mesh well with either really high offensive defenseman or really high defensive defenseman. They're really plug and play, penalty kill or power play depending on how many minutes you want to give them. I like this. I like to pick up. I was thinking in the original podcast. I remember where I was thinking Chara, simply because he's got that impact card this year. But this is definitely one of those moves where Chara. I mean, we'd assume only has a couple years left, and Riley's definitely got 5, 6, 7, 8 years to. Assuming he stays healthy at hopefully at this level. So I like it. It's a real good pickup.
yeah, it's definitely a $4 million difference in cap hit didn't hurt either.
True.
So move on to Hartford here. Listening to the podcast you guys did the first time, I did not have Jalmerson in on my initial selections, but you guys kind of talked me into it, and especially when I decided to actually go forward and not save cap and take some prospects. Saw that 88 defensive rating. No, he might go back to Sweden or Finland, play overseas, but if that happens this year, I'll just either retain him for 100K or use the free drop.
Yeah, like we were saying in the podcast, I think he's a great pick. Assuming he stays in America, he's real consistent year in year out. Who were you leaning towards before we changed your mind?
I think it was. I think I was just picking some scrub to save some cap. To be honest, let me see here. I had if I was gonna go, I was gonna pick Derek Stepan. If I was gonna go for a couple
He
year
was
rebuild, so
he was one of the three on my list. So, but I think he got the best one here.
oh for sure, especially being able to pair him with the previous pick and Mike Riley there.
Yeah, solid.
I like it. This is definitely one of those moves. I think he's worth the cap hit. His card is always solid. If he goes to Sweden, if that does happen, then it happens, you can deal with it then. But good move. I like it.
Thank you. I think next one is it's gonna be you, John. Want to take any stabs at the selection from your team?
I mean, I'm really thinking you're going Liljegren here, but Pearson is probably another option if you're looking for a forward. Those are probably my two big ones that I was thinking of from here.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
You want to say what you're doing, Matt, and then I'll show. You there, Matt?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was
That's
just
right.
spacing out. I was kind of on the same page as John. Lodrigan maybe banking on maybe he finally puts it together, gets a change of scenery maybe, and he can recapture that pre-draft hype. Yeah,
Yep, that was the pick. But unfortunately, or fortunately for myself, he is going to be traded. He's going to go to Cleveland with Boston's first, my third, and my fourth for Joe Pavelski, Mikhail Granlund, and Brent Burns.
holy crap!
Wow, that's interesting.
So
Okay.
Pavelski, I think, is at 3 million for 2 years. Granlund's at 1.5 until 2024, and Brent Burns is UFA after this year. But figured why not go for it?
That's a hell of a trade. That's
Yeah.
great. Brent Burns, fantastic. Pavelski, real good value at even at his age for the years that he has left with that card this year. I think that's great value. And then Granlund, he's been around for a while. Consistent middle sixer. It's good.
Yeah, that's an interesting move. I didn't see that coming at all. Um, I mean, again, you're moving a first, but it's Boston's first, and I'm pretty sure it's farther back in the
I
draft.
think it was 22. You're correct.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, there's not too much of a loss there. I think it's a great move. Um, and you're picking up a lot of pieces, and especially if you're going for it this year, and you got a solid enough roster when you finish up tonight. I mean, this is a key move. Like
Yeah,
it.
definitely going for it. I saw the contract Pavelski was on. I was like, I'll see what Brian wants for him. And uh, actually, this was actually two different trades that I just combined into one. Did the Brent Burns one second. So moving
So,
on, we got my buddy Dane from Hamilton. There was two different picks here. I was going back and forth um, with of who I was going to take, and it depended on who I was going to take from Philadelphia. So I actually went with Alexander Georgiev here. Um, the other one was
Mm.
going to be Tyson Jost, but I saw Tyson's 23, but this was his first, I guess, productive year, at least for his defensive rating, which what uh what caught my eye at first. But it looked like pretty much everybody from Colorado had a high defensive rating this year, so I went with Georgiev.
there you go. That's I think it's a solid move. You have a lot of future ahead of him. A high potential ceiling. Versus Jost, I agree with what you're saying. With Jost has never really lived up to his draft position, and this year he kind of is one of those maybe remodel your playing style. So this was his first year really being that kind of two-way, a little bit more grindy center than always trying to like be a playmaker, create, and which he really didn't turn out to be all that good at, even though he's still young. So I think that's a good move. You could have gone either way. I actually had you going with Jost.
Yeah,
Um,
Dane was like, I was trying to get him to tell me which one he wanted me to uh, pick by tossing me a pick for another extra protection, but he's like, nah, I'd rather let you pick. So I picked and went with Georgiev here.
I like it. I think he's going to be a really solid backup to Shesterkin in New York. And I mean, he's played lights out before. I think he'll do it again. He already has a decent card, and I think there was only one other person I had that I thought you might have gone with. I mean, there was another goalie in Mrazek, but Georgiev's, I think, the better long-term solution. But uh, Anders Lee was a good forward who you could have picked up an 83-40 card, but I have no problems whatsoever with this pick.
Yeah, the one thing with Endersley there is the 5 fortitude that he had. So anything, anybody with one of those cards, and he was a UFA too, so would have been almost a useless pick for this year.
Good point. Yeah, I hadn't looked that far into his card, but yeah. Anyway, good pickup.
All right, so next we got Dane's buddy Ian from Halifax, the champions. You guys want to take a stab here?
This one was tough as far as the impact players that were exposed. Kind of like Zadorov or Brown, they're both pending UFAs next year, so it'd be kind of a tough pill to swallow. But I really don't think there was all that much that he didn't protect. That's in terms of, like I said, impact players. So I'm thinking Dustin Brown, 2 million for a year. Third line player. I would just take that, or maybe even second line player, depending on how much depth you have up front. But that's 78. Still 6 stamina, 8 fortitude, solid card. Not a world breaker, but that's what I would go with.
Yeah, you hit that
That's
on the head.
awesome. Hmm?
He hit that on the head with Dustin Brown.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes the most sense. That's what I had you going with. I mean, there are a couple other guys, but even 2 mil 1 year, great cap hit for a single year. I mean, you'd like to have him for a little bit longer, but I think he's getting a little older. So I mean, this works.
Yeah,
Seems like hmm?
I saw his shot rating too, so that was another reason why I went with him. The only other one here that I was looking at would have been Vince Dunn, but like I
Yeah.
said, with the defensemen that are available, there is only one
Yeah,
pick to go with.
I agree. You gotta find these forwards because there are a lot of defensemen out there that I think you can really have a nice deep defensive core. So grab the forwards where you can.
Definitely. And
Yeah. The goalies only had 1 year left before they become UFAs. Zadorov would have been nice, but again, not enough card. So, all right,
yeah,
who are we moving on to?
we got Chicago. You guys in the podcast were saying Keith Yandel. Thought about it for a while, but ended up just going with Matt App just to save some cap. It's the lowest cap hit on the available, so 150K.
Yeah, saves you 2.6 mil if you went with the handle. It's not. I got no issues with that.
I actually had before he added two more players late last week. I actually had Matthew Highmore. It was prospect in actually Chicago. I think Chicago Blackhawks. So, but once he got protected, I went with Matt Apt.
Oh well, not every hit's a homer, right? So just
Yeah,
take
And
that's you're saving cap, so that's a good move.
yeah, and I was going back through this team today because I think they just put up a new list or an updated list. And I mean, you really didn't have anything other than Yandel, maybe Gardner, but his card was even worse. Um, You had Koivu, but he didn't have a good card either. So I think this makes the most sense. Start to save some money, use it somewhere else.
correct. Need to start doing that. So that's
Yeah,
what I went with
and
here.
and yeah, and I just wanted to point out that that was one of the comments in the chat we have going on Twitch is, finding something from a team like Chicago. There's not a lot to go with, so this makes sense.
Yes, and we got Syracuse here. There's two names here. You guys want to take any stabs at either of those?
I'll let John go first this one.
So I was thinking Bukestad or Dzingel. Dzingle's been out a bit. He only has 1 year left, so maybe a Bukestad.
Uh,
I had the same two, Bukestad and Zingle, and I was leaning towards Bukestad just because he's maybe starting to finally find a home.
so I actually didn't have either of those two on there. I had Barbashev and Noah Hannafin. I liked Hannafin's stamina and fortitude, but he seems to just be one of those 50, 60 guys every year and hasn't lived up to his first round pick from the Hurricanes. So I went with Barbashev here.
Not a bad move. Kind of tough to once you look at Hannafin and see where he was drafted and everything to kind of pass on that. He is still only 24. Probably maybe in 6, 7 years when he slows down, he kind of develops a lower offense, more defensive card or something. But I don't mind the draft pick here. Ivan Barbashev. What's he cost here? 1.7 asking price, center left wing, plugs in nice.
Yeah, and with
Coming off.
Hannafin, gotta look for those guys with penalty kill experience or that kill penalties for the defense. So
My only thing is coming off a bridge deal, won't you have to do a full 6 million for the life of that contract?
no, so I double checked with this or double checked with Glenn and Scott that it's actually just the normal 1, 2, 3, 4. As long as you hit the 1.8 for the 4 years, then you can have them for 4 years.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah. I think it's a decent pickup then. I mean, it was definitely not something I had expected, but I like it. It's a little off the board for me, but not a bad pickup at all.
alrighty, we got Philadelphia, Glenn.
Think
Yes.
this was one of the ones where I went with a pretty hard stance, saying Tyler Myers or bust or something like that. Um, that'd be my pick. Solid defensive guy, plugs in your top four defense probably. Good stamina, good fortitude, good card.
And I think I went a different direction with this, and I was thinking Aiden Hill, but it looks like you just put up Tyler Myers, and I mean that's a great pickup.
Yeah, so those were actually the two names that I was going back and forth with Hamilton. If I was taking Aiden Hill, I was taking Jost. If I was taking Tyler Myers, I was going Georgiev. So once I decided to uh, go for the cup, Tyler Myers had to be the pick. So I actually do think Aiden Hill has more upside to him than Georgiev does, but couldn't have both of them.
Yeah, if Aiden Hill goes to Seattle, he's going to get a lot of
That's what I was thinking.
he's going to see a lot of pucks. So there's a decent upside there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, and
Yeah.
I
That's the only frustration I think with that pick is you don't have that foresight that we normally do with that Seattle franchise not having
yeah,
picked.
part of me wanted to wait until the actual NHL expansion draft was over to see who they took, but I know that wasn't a possibility. So Tyler Myers
I
was the
will
pick here.
say I will say in your defense on that though, I mean, a lot of 1B goaltenders, at least for the GHL, usually have really good cards. And they may not have the full stamina that you'd like, but they usually have a little bit better cards than a full-time starter that's average. So I mean, it again, it's not a bad pickup, especially when you can have 3 or 4 different pretty good goalies from this expansion draft.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at. So we got the Adirondack Aces next. This was another one where I went back and forth with two different players here, and maybe even a third prospect, but it was really back and forth with two. But once I didn't take Tyson Jost, I had to go with his teammate there,
PEB. Yep.
Colorado, and I went PEB.
I mean, solid card. Easily a real great fourth liner, maybe third liner in injury situation. Fourth liner penalty kill, fantastic.
Smart move, I think. It's definitely it's not something that I had expected or I had on my board, but I mean, again, I mean, I think you're making some solid picks here. You're making picks that are making sense for you, especially this year. So another great pickup.
Yeah,
I
the
was
other
originally I was originally thinking Reimer, but
Mm.
with the goalies you have picked up, he kind of slides on the board for me. So I was before you put up Belmar, I was thinking maybe Shattenkirk, but then again, I know we have a pretty deep defense, and I mean, he's another one of those 50-70 guys. So I was thinking, like you had mentioned with Joe's high defense, Belmar is he's not that expensive. He's not really going to light the world on fire offensively, but I think he's a important depth piece.
definitely a penalty killer that I need. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the Shattenkirk there. That was another option. The only other one there was Mason Marchant or Mason Marshman. That just a prospect pick if I decided to throw in the towel for the first couple years, which I did not decide to do. So went with Belmar here.
Uh, the only other thing I would add was, Troy Stetcher was available, but I mean, he's not going to have good cards in the GHL. He's a great NHL defenseman, but just isn't defensive heavy enough. He doesn't hit. He doesn't provide that because he's a little undersized. So good stuff.
I did look at Stetcher as well. Those were the four names that I had on my draft sheet there. So we got Hershey coming up. I think this was a pretty obvious selection, especially now coming with the news from Columbus today. So the death of the goalie, but I went with Corpusalo here.
There you go. It's
That makes a lot of sense. Go ahead.
a bit of a down year, not what you want, but you've got a goalie better than him already in your depth chart. So that's one of those you hold on to him, let him find his game, get those numbers back up, and he's
Yeah.
not that expensive.
Yep. And you've already picked up two pretty good goalies, so I mean, he can sit on the bench. You don't have to worry about it. Um, There
That's
were
a
a couple guys I had looked at as far as Dermott or D'Angelo, but those guys aren't as good. And I mean, D'Angelo, you don't even know if he's coming back into the league. So
Yeah. Then yeah, I think he's got a decent sized contract there too. So, but Corpusalo might be another one that um, I don't know if Merlikins is exempt from the Seattle expansion draft or not, but Corpusalo could head over there if he's Merlikins isn't exempt. So it's another possibility there. Next
yeah,
up, we got Milwaukee. Um, I don't know if you guys had anything, but I went with a decent upside pick here. Nick Baptiste.
Nice, and another 150K guy let you spend some money somewhere else. I wasn't really sure where to go with this one. I thought there might be a chance you go for a Derek Brassard, but he is a little bit more expensive to be having on your bottom six. But I like Baptiste.
yeah. I didn't really have much for Milwaukee. It was hard because there's again just not a lot. Brassard, Middleton were a couple names I was looking at. Gustafsson on defense, but I mean, save some money here and keep it moving. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Uh, Saving some money is definitely some of these picks is what I had to do. So I went with that.
Especially when you got Cornwall coming up next, and you got to save a bit of money.
Is that who's up next?
Yeah, you got to save we got to save some money since Cornwall's coming up next.
Yep. I guess you already know where I'm going here.
I think Matt had talked me into this one. I wasn't positive about it, but I think Voracek is definitely a good one to go with here.
I did go with Voracek. The only other uh, player that I had penciled in for the longest time as my pick from Cornwall would have been Tanner Janot, but once I decided to go for it, I needed that uh, Voracek passing spread and having him with Dustin Brown there. So
I
that's where I
think
went.
Yeah, it's a great pickup for you. For Cornwall, maybe sucks a bit to lose one of your best players, but he does get to pick up almost 8 million and a really good free agency this year. So I think it's a win-win on both sides.
Yeah, I don't being a
And
Flyers fan too, so
the
yeah,
chat agrees.
yeah. You're
Scott
welcome
and
there, Phil.
Bill are yeah.
It's not what I wanted to do, giving him another 7 mil, but or eight, almost 8 mil. But I had to do what was best for me with how I went about this draft. So
It makes sense. Uh, I mean, when you can pick up a card like that, you do it.
yeah, that's the only card that was really available in the expansion
Yeah.
draft on offense, at least.
Deal with the cost later.
Yep. And speaking of cost, here comes another one with New Jersey. I did not see him being available. So once he became available, had to go with Ryan Ellis, even with that 8 million cap hit.
Ooh, yeah, I when I was putting my final list together this afternoon, I saw Ryan L sitting there. I'm like, I wonder if he goes back to back 8 mil cap hits, 8 plus. And if you have the purse strings to do it, if you got the cap space, I would have done the same thing. He's a UFA in 2 years, so we'll see what happens. But for now, great impact. I think he's worth it if you're going for it.
This goes back to a philosophy I've had since coming into the league. Anytime you can take a Predators defenseman, you do it. Um, they know how to turn them out, and Ryan Ellis has been there a while and knows how to do it.
Yeah,
So
good point. Stick with the defense, avoid their forwards.
yeah,
Yeah,
oh
except for Granlund, I hope.
Yeah, right.
yeah,
But yeah,
he's a big time.
big part. I don't know. I don't know if I would have made this pick if he had more than 2 years on his deal. I gave myself a 2 year run for the cup. So if he had more than two, I'm not quite sure if I would have done it. But uh, being in a 2 year deal and um, made it easy to just select him.
Yeah, and the great thing is you already know this year's card. He only needs one more NHL season to finish out his GHL contract. So
Yep.
good move.
We got Quebec here. I think this pick is should be pretty obvious, but
I would assume you're going goalie.
you would be right.
All right.
If
Okay.
uh if he wasn't, I think Mike Smith, or I guess Quebec's goalie situation, either having to protect Saros or Mike Smith here. Um, if he didn't have that situation, I'm not sure I would be going for the cup, but since he had two goalies that were mid 60s with the technical and athletic, it was a no brainer here. And just looked at Mike Smith's card again yesterday and didn't feel like changing it, but his fortitude is now an 8, not a 7, which also helps.
And a 7 stamina, so you can have a nice rotation um, between the two starting caliber goalies you've got now.
Yeah.
Great pick, and like you said, this really opens it up for you to really go for it this year with the roster you're putting together.
Yeah, like I said, if he wasn't available or if there was not another goalie here in the mid 60s, I probably would have just went for a build up and try and shoot for a cup in 3 to 5 years. But when I saw that he'd be available, it made it tough to pass up. So
Yeah. I mean, with the guys that are available in this expansion draft, it makes sense to go for the cup now. Um, you're getting another really good goaltender, and I think in the GHL, it's all about forward depth and then goalies. And this puts you right in that wheelhouse, at least as far as goalies. It'll be interesting to see where you start to get your forwards from, but I mean, I can't argue with the pick too much. I was thinking Kuokkanen might have been another option here with 73-38 card as an RFA, but I'm not going to argue too much with this pick here.
yeah, Actually, when before some of these teams put in, I went through their protected list and just marked off who I thought he would protect, and I thought he would protect whoever you just mentioned. And when he didn't, it gave me a second thought. But I already had some of these deals in place that I was like, nah, I can't go back now. So Mike Smith was the pick.
Good call.
We got Baltimore coming up here. I'll see if you guys want to take a stab at it.
This one was maybe a little tricky. Maybe it's a little obvious to other people, but I'm going with Caro Tanner. Cheap but a playable card. 150K plugs in fourth line.
Not a bad option there. I was thinking Julian Guthrie. I was hoping I'd be able to talk you into him in the podcast we did before. He's a good forward, 67-24 card, but I'm interested to see where you go.
Same.
I did go with Julian Gauthier. I was between him and Philip Deneau. I think Montreal is coming up next, if I remember it correctly, and uh, they had a player that was very similar to Deneau that I wasn't expecting to be available. That was available. So when he became available, I said screw Deneau and his $5.7 million cap, and went with Julian Gauthier.
Yeah.
Awesome move.
Yeah.
I
Not
can't say
a
his last name, but I like it.
I'll I know it because the Flyers had Denny Gauthier on their team about 15 years ago. So otherwise, I'd be struggling as well.
not a bad pick. I like it.
We got Montreal coming up, and I'll just show the pick since I just talked about it. Alexander Wenberg here got a very Deneau-like card. It's a free agent after this year, but 10 forward, 2 to 6 stamina. Slot him in third line center and let him be.
Yeah, that 56 defensive rating is not bad. I was torn between Wenberg and Thornton. Wenberg has the better card. Thornton has the lighter cap hit and a slightly longer contract. So I wasn't sure where you'd go with that, but I don't mind the pick here with Wenberg. It's a good impact for this season.
When I was going through the last half of the expansion draft rosters, um, I circled this one earlier today, and I think this is key because you're going to need a bunch of centers. I don't think there are a lot of centers available, or even just forwards in general. This is a great pickup. Younger guy who I think you'll have for a while. So I think is he coming into a contract year, or is it 2 or 3 more years?
Nah, he's a UFA after this year. So,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
yeah, Thornton was who I had penciled in here until I saw that Wenberg was available. So
like it. Hopefully you can pick up another center or two. I think you had made a couple trades. Maybe there was one in there that I missed earlier, but I mean, great pickup here. I like
yeah,
it.
Pavelski, and then there will be a few more trades, but we'll get to them. We got Cincinnati here. Just going with how you've seen the draft turning out. It might be a fairly obvious pick for you guys.
I would
I mean,
assume you're going Vlasic, but there's a chance I think you might go Sutter, another center, depth center, third, fourth line center. But I would assume Vlasic. Yep.
And you
yeah,
were correct.
that's the one I had picked out. I mean, you could have gone with Tyler Mott, 74-50 card as a forward, but I mean, he only had 2 more years on a 1 mil contract. Vlasic is definitely the better pickup, especially if you're in win now mode.
Yeah, I thought about Tyler Mott, but I saw that 5 fortitude, and I was trying to stay away from them because that's always a roll of the dice, staying injured or not. And I actually think he's still up on the GHL website with an injury, so I'm gonna stay away from him and went with Vlasic here.
Good points. Yeah, and unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to go that deep into their cards, but I mean, this is still the better move regardless.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
We got
and there was really nothing else from Cincinnati that I had seen. So,
nah. The only other guy would have been Gabriel Carlson, I think, was a prospect defenseman, but he actually had a 61 card, but only a fortitude of 3. So,
uh,
but
yeah, so not bad. But
yeah.
what were you thinking with Pittsburgh here?
Do you
Because
guys
there
want to?
wasn't a lot.
No, there
Sorry.
wasn't. There was 2 names that I had on my list, and I went with the forward here.
May I guess Alex Chiasson simply for cap
Oh,
hit and
No.
card? Nope. All right.
all right.
We went Jason Dickinson. Needed another one of those 60-60 guys that plays. So
I think this makes a lot of sense. I mean, I had Chison as well, or however you're gonna say it, because he had a 70-22, but that defensive rating is really a big hindrance, especially on a bottom six. So I like this.
Yeah, you're loading up that bottom six with a decent amount of 50-60 defensive cards for your forward. So that's starting to get kind of scary.
yeah, I don't think I have a single defenseman in my top 6 that's gonna be under an 80, except for Mike Riley, who's got the offensive rating to go. So we're gonna have a strong defense here.
It's
We got
making a ton of sense. So
we got Moncton here. Wasn't a lot to pick from Owen here, but this was another. I don't want to say a cap, a scrub to save the cap because he's actually got a pretty decent card, but Brett Ritchie would be the pick.
Yep, I was thinking Richie or one of the defensemen. I thought there might be a chance you take EJ and put him on the LTIR for this year, and then see if maybe he recovers next year. But the guy's made out of glass and it's too risky. So Richie, I think just with that 100K, fantastic value for here.
yeah,
Yeah,
I like
there
it.
wasn't really much anything after his protected list, so Richie
No,
was a pretty obvious pick there.
yeah. There were a couple of really expensive vets, but I mean, really bad contracts as far as their cards, especially right now. So this is the best move that I had on the board.
Sweet. We got Suffolk
Oh,
and Chris here.
before we move on, Brendan, there was a question about how close you are to the cap. Do you have that figured out? Because I know this was a cap consideration
I
pick.
do. I have a nice Google Sheets there that was has uh everything in. I'll reveal my cap space situation after the draft here.
Awesome. All
Sounds
right,
good.
so let's see what you did here with Suffolk.
There's a few options here. I really wanted to pick Bertuzzi, but the way that was going this year with his 2 fortitude, there's just no way. So I went with Grizzly here.
66, 70, solid 7 stamina. Might take a ding or two this year with that 7 fortitude, but still, that's a I like it. He'll pair again. He'll pair nicely with one of those more defensive guys. I think he'll put up good numbers.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think this is one of my original picks that I had for Suffolk, but he had such a wealth of guys you could have picked from. What was the thought process going into here versus taking like a forward with Connor Sheary or Gagner?
So Sherry's got that 71-38 or so card, but
Mhm.
got a decent cap hit for a card like that, and I don't think he's going to be playing too high on the caps, so that kind of crossed him off. I did have Bertuzzi slotted in here for a while, and he would have been the pick had I uh, not been going for the cup. But Grizzly here is hopefully he can continue building upon what he did this year in Boston. I actually have a Bruins fan at work, so I asked him about him a little bit for a little bit more insight. So that always helps.
Yeah, I, this makes a lot of sense to me. The Bruins are bringing up a lot of different defensemen now. Mm, I know just with the I have Zaboral on my roster. He's played a couple third pairing minutes, so um, I like it. I think the other way you could have gone just to try and save some cap is Spurlin, but this makes the most sense for a win now mode.
Yeah, and yeah, I got nothing more to add with this pick, so we'll
Cool.
move on and we'll go to Washington. Uh, don't remember my thought process here. If you guys want to take a guess first, and then
I have no idea. I had a hard time with this one. There's a decent amount of players that are unprotected with large cap hits, so I'm figuring I'm gonna skip over those guys. And my guess is you're gonna go for like a low cap hit.
you would be right. I went with Parker Kelly.
Okay.
Pretty
That's definitely not something I had thought here, but I like the move as far as a cap hit situation. What were you thinking?
Yeah, he's got a 200K cap hit. Think I saw he's only 22 years old and played a couple games in the NHL this year too. So we'll see if he pans out here.
I
Up
like it.
next,
Let's
we got
get it.
Cleveland. There was a way I wanted to go, um, but I didn't. So if you guys want to take a guess,
This is another tricky one because there's a handful of players that are kind of similar. Maybe like a Morrissey or Hartman. Um, but yeah, Hartman being UFA, 1.6 mil, something like that.
Yeah.
Morrissey's more expensive.
Yeah, I was thinking as far as like a pure card Morrissey, but even that's not really too great. 5 million for 4 years is a little rich, but Billy Huso, I believe. You might have to correct me on the pronunciation. Was kind of my thought process here as a goalie standpoint. Maybe try and keep him around a bit, get a better card. What
so
were you?
I went with
Hey,
Hartman
Hartman.
here. Um, I really wanted to go with Morrissey, but I did a little bit of more digging into to his I guess analytical stats, and 2 year yeah 3 years ago we played almost 3 minutes of PK each game, and the last 2 seasons it's been down to 1 minute. So thinking that the only way he's seeing time on penalty kill is if another defenseman that is on the kill is in the box. So his card, I don't know if it's ever going to get back up to what it was at an 85, but um, still wanted to take him even with that. But with the 5 mil cap hit, I had to go Hartman here.
Okay.
Hartman's he's a real pain in the ass to play against. From what I can see him being in the division with my team, the Avs, playing for the Wild. I can't stand playing against them. Um, with Hartman, he's a body that just bounces off everything, really gets under your skin, and I feel like that's maybe not something that gets reflected as well in the GHL, but it's 69-40 card. Again, bottom six plays well. I don't really like. I think being torn with the Morrissey pick, I think it's just a cap it that has to take you away from that. And you can't be too upset with coming away with Hartman.
Yeah, Brian just chimed in here that he was hoping I would take Morrissey, and I really thought about it there, Brian, but I once I did that more research and saw he wasn't taking any more or really playing PK, I just couldn't, especially with that cap hit.
Yeah,
So
this one would be.
so moving on from Cleveland here, we got a trade with Scott here. I'm sending my second round pick for Jordan Stahl and additional protection for Jake Virtanen. So Jordan Stahl's got a 85-49 card this year, and I think contract's right around 2 million for 2 years. So it's almost a no-brainer.
Nice pick. Get you another solid defenseman. I was thinking Backlund, but I wasn't really thinking. I wasn't really taking Cap into that consideration. With as we're adding players together, we know we're running out of room here, and Backlund at 75-50 for what 6.5 million, kind of a hard pill to swallow. So I was thinking maybe Gudis, but taking Stahl.
Well,
Or
actually, this was just a trade.
oh, this is a trade.
This is just a
Nice,
trade. Just
sweet.
just a trade. So I do have a pick from New York, and you just hit the nail on the head there. It is
Mhm.
going to be Racco Gudis.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that made sense just because, I mean, I don't think you take Jake Virtanen there anyway. He has legal issues right now, and who knows what he's doing after this last year. So, um, I don't think you're picking him. So that was a good pick up there for a
Yeah,
second round pick.
and you got a guy who's his numbers are a bit lower than some of the other defensemen you have 52 78, but 7 block shots, 9 hit, 9 fortitude, real asshole out there, so that'll be he'll fit in well
Another
somewhere in the
another
defense.
former Flyer here too. So
Yeah,
he was loved when he was a Flyer. So
he's one of those guys you love him when he plays for you and you hate him when
oh
he
yeah,
hits one of your guys. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, Flyers fans were hating on the trade that they made with the Caps, trading Gudis for Niskanen, but it worked out well for the Flyers for 1 year until Niskanen decided to retire. So
Yeah, this seems like a good pickup. I'd like to see where he ends up slotted in on your roster. It makes me wonder about some of the guys with a little bit lower defensive rating. Um, but let's keep it rolling.
yeah, we'll go to Matt here. Um,
There's
what do you got?
not much here. I'm going to go Lane Peterson.
You would be correct. The that was slotted in from the very first moment that I went through your team, and that's the only name I wrote down. So it's
Yeah, I like it.
easy.
But I think we covered that in the podcast. I really didn't give you anything.
Yeah, it was well.
But Peter, he just broke into the league last year with Phoenix. Couple of games, looks all right. He's never gonna score 30 goals or anything like that.
No,
But for the
23s, so it can
yeah,
still grow, but we'll see.
and and for the price tag, that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I would have liked to have seen you pick up a Poso here. I mean, he has a little bit better card, similar fortitude, I think, maybe a little better stamina, but I mean, not a bad pick. I think Poso would have been a little better, but I mean, this isn't a bad pick.
I think this is one of the ones where you can expect maybe Peterson, hopefully, to have this type of card for the next 5, 6, 7 years. While Poso is getting old, and so he's been trending downward.
yeah.
So
This was one of the few picks where I actually was looking at the future instead of the now. So
thanks. Now I got a hold of
super
Phil.
good pick. We got Toronto next. Um, there was quite a few guys here I could have went from. No stars, but um, solid players. A couple forwards, couple defensemen. I'll let you guys try and figure it out.
Go for it, John.
Yeah, so I was thinking Martinook here. Almost 2 million cap hit, but a 63-45 card would have filled out a bottom six role. What were you thinking, Matt?
I had all three. My three guys are all UFAs next year: Martinook, DeMello, and Archibald. So it really just comes down to whether or not you want to go forward or defenseman. Um, so
Yeah, so I went with Dylan DeMello, just for that 78 defense, 9 fortitude, 5 stamina. The other name that I had there was Derek Ryan. Uh, he's coming off he's a RFA at 34 years old, I think, but he's got a 60-60 card, I'm pretty sure, but I have a few of those, so went with Dylan DeMello here.
Interesting pickup. I'm not like it's a good pickup, but just another defenseman uh, with that above 78 rating. I mean, I feel like you have about 8 of them at this
Yeah,
point.
I do
I
have
was
I do
I
have a
was gonna
lot.
say
It's going to be deep.
it's getting crowded back there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
with Jalmerson being a 7 fortitude and Ellis being a 6, I wanted to make sure I had my defensemen in a row here, and took a few extra defensemen that I maybe might have not needed, but rather have them and on the contracts that they're on than have to overspend in free agency for them,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, I mean,
is
best case scenario is you might be able to trade a couple, especially if they're not on your top 6, and then worst case, they sit around just in case you have an injury.
yeah, that was my thought process there. So um, move on and go to St. Paul. Um, he also did not leave me a lot. Um, went with Maxime Legacy, 100K goalie, 46 43. I think played a
That's who I,
couple games in the NHL this year, but
that's who I would have taken. So solid pick there. If Quick was cheaper, maybe you can hope that he, gets healthy again or something. But at 7 million, I think you're just gonna, you got to
yeah,
go with Legacy.
Yeah, I think with where you're at, this makes the most sense. I would have liked to see Kyle Turris because I think that card can get bumped up, especially if he does move away from Nashville. But um, I mean, you're looking to save cap. This makes sense.
yeah. This was once I didn't see anybody with like an impact card in there and 100K for this type of goalie, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. So that's where I went here. We got Edmonton coming up. Um, he also like he also didn't lead me too much. He had only put in 8 players at first, and I think he added 2 later, and kind of was given a heads up that that was going to happen. So ended up going with my third pick here and picking Alexander True.
Yeah, this is a team where I really didn't have a good feel for what you would do. Um, I thought you might just go like like bargain bin, pick up a 100K contract or something like that, or maybe go Mikhail Grigorenko for a year as another depth player. I'm not really that familiar with True. So, but
Yeah,
I'm seeing he's 1.1 and 40 46 39, so he's probably shouldn't get any ice time this year. But a better solution to like maybe for the long term than a guy like Grigorenko would be. So you could bridge that guy or something.
yeah. The Grigorenko was the only name I had. But I mean, if you're looking to save some cap, again, this makes sense. Grigorenko would have had a 68-38 card that you could have thrown on that bottom 6 again, but at this point, how many of those kind of guys are there that you can get? So uh, probably not the best pickup.
Yeah, with True, you think he's 23 or 24. Played some games with the Sharks this year, and um, just seems like a decent prospect. We'll see how he turns out. This was one of those picks for the future.
It does seem like the Sharks are about to have a pretty big turnover, so
Yeah.
makes sense.
We got. I think this is the last pick.
This is the last pick. Do you have $5.5 million left?
I do.
Okay, well I know who it is.
Yeah, I mean, with only a little bit of cap hit, I was thinking Flurry, but
It's Colton Parayko, man.
oh, you did. So you did have the cap. Okay.
Yeah,
But so this is where it gets interesting. I picked him. I was gonna keep him, and then once Ryan Ellis was available, I with the very similar card. Um, I was talking with Dane, and he wanted. I was said something about Pareko, and he was Hurdle was out there. I was like, I'm not doing that straight up, but especially without backup for Pareko. But once I got Ellis, I was like, all right, let's do it. So
Oh, hurdle, nice.
I traded Pareko for Hurdle, Steven Johns, which I'm gonna waive for 200K cap hit, and got a third round pick this year for the Hurdle's UFA after this year, but might be a one of those franchise points re-signing. But
He's certainly your top six center. Plugs in either one or two, depending on who else you got. We'll see in the next couple slides here what you got for your depth chart. But solid pick, and then a nice shrewd move to slide him over and pick up a forward.
yeah, with all the defensemen that were available in this, I was like, I need to make some trades with some of these defensemen and go for some forwards. But yeah, let's see that top forwards here. We'll go with first. So Gensel, Stahl, Pavelski, Voracek, Hurdle, Brown, Barbashev, Wenberg, and Granlund, and Dickinson, Belmar, and Hartman. So
No real holes. I mean, really, that defensive rating for the bottom six is pretty solid.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have too much of a depth after these 12, besides maybe Brett Ritchie and Gauthier for a couple games, but I do have about 4 million in cap space left, so I might be able to pick up one or two forwards in free agency here. So we'll see what goes on from
I,
there. But pretty
I
happy
like
with.
how this.
What was
Sorry.
that?
Oh, I was gonna say I like how this turned out a lot better than what I was expecting during the draft, especially with the moves you made. This is a lot better forward cards than I expected.
Yeah, I think I traded for one, two, three, four or five of these guys on the forwards. That's what you can imagine would have been left, or what it would look like if I didn't make any trades. The forwards would be hurting quite a bit.
I mean, it's one of those things. Like it's a nature of the beast. You had to make some moves to kind of fill in your. You either you had a couple different strategies you could have done. You went the way with filling by trade. You could have gone. You could have been Agent Chaos, and gone bargain bin team, just pick cheap, and they're just blown up free agency. I figured that might have been an option if you just want to be the Agent of Chaos. Glad you didn't do that. Um, I like this lineup. I'm kind of bummed out we have to share the division now, because that's a very solid team.
I did think about doing that bargain bidding strategy for the draft, but I saw a bunch of people with a lot of cap space, and I was like, I don't. And that was another thing with my trades. I didn't want to be having to outbid guys for guys in free agency, seeing some of these guys with a ton of cap space and not that many 80s guys for offense. So that's where I had to go with there. So
Mm. That makes a lot of sense. I will say that once everybody re-signs their UFAs and RFAs, a lot of that money will be gone. But there's still going to be a lot of money left out there,
yeah,
and
especially with the Aces and Hershey. So
mhm,
um,
and
yeah,
and a lot of those top guys go pretty quick.
oh yeah, and I didn't want to handcuff myself in a bad contract, especially with only giving myself a 1 or 2 year um, cup run here. So move on to the defense and see what the top six and the goalies look like.
Oh, you can't really complain too much about that. That's fantastic. Obviously, you're gonna lose a couple of contracts in the next, over the next couple of years. But with your Smith and Kincaid situation, that's a solid uh, one 1-2 punch there for goaltender. Uh, can't complain.
Yeah, I think the goaltender depth is going to be key. Um, I mean, you're your entire defensive core is going to be pretty stacked, and it's going to make it pretty hard. And like Matt had said, it's going to be frustrating having you in the division. You know, I was totally hoping for a cup run, and I think you might be one of the bigger uh, hurdles for that at this point.
Yeah, the defense was pretty much, if these guys weren't available, or I wasn't able to make some of these trades that I did, it would have just been Prospect City and added some prospects in UFA, but um, the trades worked out, and the defenseman works out, and forwards and everything kind of just fell into place itself almost. And we'll go to the bench and the prospects here. Like I said, not too much on the forward side for the depth, but the defensive depth, the top 9 defensemen are just gonna would plug into pretty much anybody's team there.
Yeah, and then there's always teams that swing and miss in free agency. They're going to be looking for a guy like Gudis or DeMello.
Yeah,
So if you wind up with the depth to swing around, you can pick up another forward, you can pick up a draft pick or something. You've got a lot of flexibility.
yeah,
Yeah, I, it would be frustrating not having those first round picks this year, but I mean, with this kind of roster, you don't really need them, at least not this year. So, if you start having forwards go down, that might be an issue, but otherwise, pretty stacked roster.
I think the only 2 forwards that I have um, that are that are in my top 12 that are below a 9 fortitude are Brown with an 8 and Barbashev with a 7. But other than that, everybody's a 9 or a 10. So I'm hoping that the injury bug does not hit my forwards.
Yeah, and that's pretty surprising this year because there's a lot of that where they're a little bit lower just because of all the craziness that went on in the NHL.
Yeah, and then hopefully Corpusalo can pick it back up and have another 60s card again. So see what happens there. But uh, just want to thank you guys for helping me make this presentation, and see you guys in the division.
Oh yeah, but thank you. You did all the work. You got a real nice looking presentation. We just talked. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
thanks for letting us jump in.
Thanks for helping out here with the podcast, and we'll get this up on YouTube for those guys who might have missed it. But Scotty Cap 79.6. So I got about 4.5 to go with. So 1 or 2 players in
Uh,
free agency there.
So you'll have to fill out the roster too and do a lot of that stuff. So there'll probably be a lot of minors contracts as well, huh?
Yeah, they'll whatever. I'll probably go for one forward, and then the rest will just be minor deals. So um, not
Makes a lot of sense.
not too many holes that I need to fill, and that was my goal. Not having to outbid people for UFAs. So
Yeah, real world Seattle would kill for a team like that. So
yeah,
I think you did a really good job capitalizing what was available and flexing where you could to pick up forwards to fill those holes because it was a real defense heavy draft. You grabbed the goalies where they were. It's great and fantastic trades. I can't really complain. I think one of the Pizzos was saying that there isn't anything that we didn't like. We didn't like any. We didn't not like any picks. And I would say yeah, that's probably good critique, but at the same time, I think you did your homework and you went and you found the best options. And for the most part, I think we would agree with you.
yeah,
Yeah,
couldn't couldn't be happier with how it turned out. So
yeah.
thanks for the kind words, guys, and I'll get this up on YouTube. And if you probably don't want to rewatch it, but for those guys who missed it, they can watch it, and see you guys in the division.
Yep, sounds good, man. Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.